Welcome to Half 2-4. Today in the episode, Tottenham, a step away from the abyss. Does Zerbi calls to die on the pitch? But do his players, who are already packing their bags for the championship, hear him? Xabi Alonso in Chelsea, an ideal rescue or another BlueCo trap for a genius who demands the impossible power? Lewandowski shown the door of Barcelona, and Nico Williams already regrets his 10-year contract. Liverpool preparing $80 million, and for dessert, why Luis Enrique sends critics to hell? We are figuring it out right now. Roberto De Zerbi came out to the microphone and said exactly what a coach who still believes should say. I watched on TV how everyone says about us that we don't sleep, we cry because we were relegated. But no, we are not relegated yet. Only losers cry and think about the negative. The most important thing now is to drown out this doomed voice inside us. Strongly said. But let's look at the facts without emotions. Tottenham has a trip to Aston Villa ahead, then a home match against Leeds, which must be won necessarily, and then Chelsea away. They finish the season at home against Everton. Not a single gift. Villa is fighting for European competitions. Leeds for survival. Everton is also in the fight. Forest is 8 points ahead and practically safe. Leeds already gained 40 points and are approaching salvation. That is, Tottenham not only has to catch up with West Ham, they cannot afford a single mistake. I think De Zerbi is right in one thing: giving up now is a crime. But it's not just about psychology. Tottenham played this season in such a way that being relegated is not a catastrophe of fate. It's a logical result. Without Romero, without form, with a schedule that does not forgive weakness. 4 matches, 2 points lag, and the voice inside, which De Zerbi so wants to drown out unfortunately, often tells the truth. Robert Lewandowski, a free agent this summer, 37 years old, the best scorer of Barcelona for the last 4 seasons, and not a single contract for next year. How is this even possible? Very simple. Barca offered him an extension, but with cutting the salary in half. Lewandowski decided that on such terms he will not extend, and now he is looking for a new club. And here appears Juventus. Gazzetta dello Sport confirms the side is interested. For free, experienced, motivated, to prove that he still can. This is an ideal formula for a club that counts every euro. Lewandowski earns about 400,000 euros a week at Barca. Of course, he will go to a new place for less, but exactly how much is still a question. But there is one big but. Before thinking about Lewandowski, Juventus must solve the Vlahovic issue. And it is still open. Sky Sport Italia confirms there is a mutual desire to extend the contract, and the first negotiations have already begun. The club is ready to offer a 2-year deal with a salary of 6 to 7 million euros per season. This is almost twice less than he receives now. Vlahovic, it seems, is open to this. He does not want to move to Milan or anywhere else in Serie A so as not to betray Juventus. Beautifully said. But there are no signatures yet. That is, we have such a situation. If Vlahovic stays Lewandowski as a second striker, interesting, but expensive and logistically difficult. If Vlahovic goes Lewandowski as the main one, for free, with experience, ready. But 37 years old is 37 years old. Serie A requires physics, which becomes less with years, although some call the Championship of Italy a league of veterans. But there is something in this. Let's ask Modric. My opinion, Juventus plays smart, they keep both options open, and are not in a hurry. Vlahovic is the priority, because he is younger and more promising. But if negotiations reach a dead end, Lewandowski is standing nearby with open hands. A free top striker with an appetite to prove something after leaving Barca. Last summer, he could have moved to Barcelona. Everyone was sure. Contract agreed, things packed, and suddenly a turnaround. Signed a 10-year deal with Athletic. That is, think about it, a deal for 10 years. Bilbao fans roared with happiness. And now, less than a year has passed, and Nico Williams is again looking at the exit. In fact, the player is dissatisfied. Athletic is failing the season, stuck in the middle of the table without European competitions. And agents for Nico already starting to contact clubs through intermediaries themselves. They give to understand the guy is ready to listen to offers. Liverpool listens very carefully. Now about the money. After signing the new contract, the release clause for Williams rose to 100 million euros. Liverpool is preparing an offer of approximately 80 million, that is, trying to agree below the clause. Athletic formally can just refuse. But if the player himself presses, keeping him will be almost impossible. We already saw this a year ago in the reverse direction. And you know what's interesting? Barcelona, after last year's démarche, closed the door for him forever. That is, Nico has fewer options than it seems. Liverpool now is the most realistic and most concrete direction. After the departure of Salah, they need a world-class winger. Williams, 23 years old, European champion, one of the best dribblers of the continent. This is not just a signing, this is an aim for the long-term future. I think Nico Williams has a strange habit of signing long contracts and then regretting. But this time, the player clearly has already decided everything. The question is only how quickly Liverpool will make an official move. Because if they delay, the queue of those interested will not stand still. Anfield waits. The ball is on the side of the Reds. Xabi Alonso and Chelsea. On paper, it looks like an ideal marriage. But in these negotiations, a hidden condition appeared that can either become the transfer of the year or undermine the whole deal at the start. Is Alonso ready to risk his reputation? And will the management dare to violate their own iron rules for the sake of the Spaniard? Let's take apart this complicated plot right now. In fact, Chelsea is once again looking for a leader. After the dismissal of Rosignol, who lasted only 3 months and left after 5 defeats in a row, Callum McFarlane is temporarily on the bridge. But Simon Phillips confirms Xabi Alonso is in the shortlist. He is currently out of work after Real and Madrid, where his path ended in January. And here hides the key to understanding the whole situation. In Madrid, Xabi started phenomenally, 10 wins in 11 matches of La Liga. But then a conflict with Vinicius, a series of failures, and a fatal 2-3 defeat from Barcelona in the Super Cup final. They say that Alonso left disappointed precisely because he had no real influence on transfers, unlike his successful period at Bayer. He already stepped on this rake once in Madrid and now puts forward an ultimatum to Chelsea. I will come, but the final word on the players is mine. And you know why it sounds like a sentence? Because we've already been through this. Chelsea already had a very good coach, Enzo Maresca. The person squeezed the maximum out of this team, won the Conference League and the Club World Cup, 2 serious trophies. But the Italian left with a scandal because he also demanded real reinforcements, namely in the center of defense. We were officially told that he was removed because he supposedly looked towards City for the place of Guardiola. But let's be honest, if you are comfortable in the club, you don't look for a way out. Enzo Maresca just got tired of being a coach without a voice in the BlueCo system. Now the management is looking for a replacement. In the list appeared Francesco Farioli from Porto. He has an incredible 74% of wins. But we already know one incredible coach from the Championship of Portugal with fantastic statistics, right? Maybe we should ask United how things are going with Amorim. Statistics in Portugal often turn out to be an illusion when you fall into the hell of the Premier League. Besides Francesco Farioli, Iraola, Glasner, and Fabregas are in the game, my opinion. Alonso is a person who will not step on the same rake twice. He already got burned in Real without control over the squad and saw how the system chewed up the successful Enzo Maresca. This is a win-or-lose situation. If the Chelsea management really wants to return greatness, they will have to give up part of the power. If not, they will again get a convenient coach who will just be grateful for the job. And such coaches rarely win trophies. Paul Merson on Sky Sports said honestly, the problem is that Chelsea is now looking for someone who is glad to be here and not someone for whom the club should be grateful for coming. And what do you think? Will Xabi go to a compromise, or is he just waiting for a call from Liverpool? Fabrizio Romano confirmed what has long been in the air. Gonçalo Ramos can leave PSG this summer, a serious possibility. And if you look at what is happening behind the scenes, it is even an understatement. In fact, Ramos came to PSG from Benfica for 65 million euros in 2023. But in 3 years, he never became a regular all the time in the shadow of Dembele and company. In 3 seasons, only 38 starts in League One, 26 goals. Not bad for a reserve. But Ramos is not a reserve by level. He is 24 years old. He wants to play in the World Cup in the starting lineup for Portugal, and for this, he needs to play in the club regularly. Now about who is already in line. Jorge Mendes, the player's agent, has already started negotiations with Serie A clubs. Specifically, Ramos was offered to both Juventus and especially actively to Milan. Di Marzio confirms this offer is real and Milan is considering it. But there is a nuance. PSG will not let him go cheaply, so a loan option with a mandatory buyout is being considered. Regarding Juventus, there is a more interesting situation. The side is more interested in another PSG player, Randal Kolo Muani, who is now on loan at Tottenham. Ramos for them is a backup option if the main plans don't work out. From the Premier League, there is also movement. Chelsea and Newcastle have already received information about the player's availability. United is also on the list. They were interested in Ramos even earlier. Atletico Madrid, Leipzig, and Dortmund also monitoring the situation. Contract until 2028. Market value about 45 million euros. That is, with the right structure of the deal, this is an absolutely real purchase for a middle-level club. My opinion, Ramos is a classic case of a player who was bought correctly but used incorrectly. At PSG, he remained that second Portuguese after Mbappe. But his level as a starting striker of a top club, Serie A looks like the most realistic scenario. Milan is looking for a scorer. There is money. Mendes is already in Milan on the phone. If everything works out, it will be one of the smartest transfers of the summer. Quietly, without noise, and with a huge potential for explosion. 9 goals. First half, 5. Record of all times in the Champions League semifinals. And after all this, people were found who sat down and wrote, "But this is a messy defense, not football." Luis Enrique read it and couldn't hold back. Not all opinions deserve respect. If an opinion is shit, it should not be respected. There are people who like such football, and they are the majority. I am among them, and there are others. This is probably the most honest press briefing of the season. Now let's find out if this is really the best match in history. 9 goals, an absolute record for Champions League semifinal matches. The previous record 7, and it was set 4 times. And for the first time in history in a Champions League semifinal, both clubs scored 4 or more goals. Yes, it's official in the UEFA protocol. Thierry Henry, after the match, called it pure cinema and added, "Rest in peace, everyone who missed this game." And this is not an exaggeration for a fine word. This is a person who has seen hundreds of top matches and still finds no words. And now about the arguments of the critics. Yes, the defense of both teams looked like open gates. Yes, Bayern conceded 5 at home, and it's a shame for a club of such level. But here's the thing. Luis Enrique, after the final whistle, said, "I have never seen a match with such a rhythm. You need to enjoy and admit this is only the 3rd defeat of Bayern for the whole season. That is, it's not a weak Bayern, it's PSG, which just played the match of its life." Marquinhos, after the game, said, "All football lovers, I am sure, enjoyed it. On the pitch, it was a real pleasure. We dream of such matches all childhood." My opinion? Critics have their arguments, and they are not completely wrong. If PSG defends the same way in the return game in Munich, they can fly out. Company comes out to his own field with 75,000 fans and a score of 4-5. This is not a sentence, it's a challenge. But what happened in Paris, this is the reason why billions of people watch football. Not for the sake of tactical schemes and 0 scores. For the sake of this, 9 goals. Hearts in the throat. And Enrique, who is tired of explaining beauty to people who don't see it,